So, first off, why am I squatting here like this? Well, I started doing something called the 30-30 Squat Challenge by Ido Portal, and then I realized that I wanted to upload something before midnight tonight. That probably wasn't the case yesterday, but it will be today. Once a day, preferably before midnight. I'm not hugely attached to that. Anyway, I just found out that another one of my friends is going to start learning programming, and that's something I'm pretty passionate about. I could talk about learning programming, how you're supposed to learn, or how I think you should learn programming, and what programming is. I think that's a huge thing that people don't understand. Actually, that I still don't understand, because what I wish I had known about programming before is that it's really less like a linear path. There's no one person who has learned programming, except maybe Donald Knuth. But that guy basically invented computer science, so we're not exactly in his league. Anyway, I see programming as this vast geography with tons of cities and neighborhoods, and just because you're an expert in one area, like I know my neighborhood really good, doesn't necessarily mean really well, sorry. Just because I know my neighborhood really well doesn't mean that I'm going to know another city or location really well. For instance, I'm a web developer, and I know nothing about game development. It's a big mysterious area to me. And my friend's a game developer, but he knows very little about web development. So, just because I'm familiar with Chicago doesn't mean I'm familiar with New York, although anything with a grid system should be pretty understandable to me. And that's actually similar to programming too. There are some guidelines in some areas that are going to be the same, and that'll help you get your bearings from place to place, but it doesn't all just transfer magically. Just because you're a wizard at HTML, CSS, and JavaScript doesn't mean you'll be able to sling Python or Ruby or C. Just because you know static languages doesn't mean you'll know dynamic languages. That was probably a bit too much detail, but you get the point. It's a vast geography. I don't know anything about game development. I don't know anything about embedded systems or high-frequency trading or visualizations. I know a very small slice of the programming world. And you know what? I think that's fine. There's a wonder to the creations that humankind has made in the last 30 to 50 years, which is another thing, and I'll talk about that later, but it's very much similar to literature as opposed to engineering, or, well, actually, everything might be considered a body of literature, but it's much closer to literature than you might expect. Literature and writing. But I'll write about that in another talk. Until then, we're gonna have to cut this short.